My name is Clara Williams. I'm 41, and I live in Boston, Massachusetts. That night was supposed to be filled with joy. Our son's graduation, the moment every parent dreams of. Instead, my world shattered in front of hundreds. My husband, James, the man I sacrificed everything for, stood up and announced he was leaving me. People gasped, cameras flashed, my knees nearly gave out. But before his smug smile could settle, another voice cut through the air, sharper than any knife. His mistress walked into the hall, holding a secret that would destroy him completely. Stay until the end. You won't believe the twist that left everyone in absolute silence. The evening began with polished smiles and restless excitement. Our son, Daniel, was finally graduating with honors, and the entire hall buzzed with laughter and camera shutters. I sat proudly in the second row, clutching the program booklet like it was treasure. My husband, James, had his arm draped over my chair, a display of affection that fooled everyone but me. For months, I had sensed something rotting beneath his perfect mask. James was the kind of man who charmed his way into every room. A high-profile attorney, he lived for the applause, the admiration. To the world, we were the golden family. But behind closed doors, his phone calls late at night, his sudden business trips, and the way he flinched when I touched his pocket told me otherwise. Still, I pushed it all aside for Daniel's sake. Tonight was about him, not us, or so I thought. As the ceremony reached its climax, the dean invited families to stand and applaud the graduates. That's when James rose, not to clap, not to cheer, but to deliver a bombshell. He tapped the microphone on the podium, and with a voice as smooth as silk, he declared, "Clara, this is the last night we'll ever stand together as a family. I'm leaving you." The crowd froze. Whispers surged like wildfire. I couldn't breathe. My son turned toward me, confusion written across his young face. Every ounce of air in my lungs turned to stone. James smirked, enjoying the drama like it was his stage. But fate wasn't done with him. From the back of the hall, heels clicked against marble. A woman tall, elegant, with fiery red lipstick strode forward. She looked James dead in the eyes and said, "Leaving your wife is one thing, James, but lying to me about the baby, that ends tonight." The hall erupted. Gasps, screams, phones recording. My humiliation burned into rage. If James wanted to play with fire, I was ready to watch him burn. The silence that followed her words was almost unbearable. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. James froze, his confident posture collapsing like a crumbling wall. His eyes darted between me, the crowd, and the stranger who had just shattered his carefully crafted lie. The woman introduced herself without hesitation. "My name is Vanessa Carter, and James promised me we'd be together after he left Clara. He said we'd raise our child as a family." But imagine my shock when I found out he was still lying to both of us. A murmur spread through the audience. Parents covered their children's ears, others filmed with wide-eyed fascination. Daniel, my son, sat stone-faced, his fists clenched so tightly I thought his nails might draw blood. He wasn't just losing respect for his father. He was seeing the man for who he truly was. James stammered, his voice trembling for the first time in years. "Vanessa, not here, we'll talk later." But Vanessa's glare was merciless. "No, James, we'll talk now. You humiliated your wife in public. Then you can handle being humiliated the same way." Her words sliced through him like glass. For a brief moment, I almost pitied him. Almost. I stood, finally finding my strength. My voice, though quiet, carried across the hall. "James, for years I let your lies bury me. But tonight, you buried yourself." The audience erupted in applause, not for me, but for the audacity of truth. They were watching a drama unfold more riveting than any ceremony. Daniel walked over and stood beside me. His voice shook, but his conviction was clear. "Mom, you don't need him. We'll be fine without him." Tears stung my eyes, not from pain, but from the fierce pride I felt for my son. James, meanwhile, stood paralyzed, his once perfect mask shattered, his reputation collapsing in real time. Vanessa didn't even look at him again. She turned to me instead, her expression softening. "I didn't come here for you, Clara, but maybe fate wanted you to see the truth with your own eyes." She left him standing there, alone, broken, exposed. And for the first time in years, I felt something unexpected. Not just rage, not just humiliation. I felt power. That night, after the chaos of the graduation, I sat in my quiet kitchen, staring at the untouched champagne James had bought for celebration. The irony stung. The man I thought I knew was nothing but a hollow shell, filled with lies, betrayal, and arrogance. Daniel was asleep upstairs, but I couldn't rest. Vanessa's words replayed in my mind like a broken record. He promised we'd raise our child together. My stomach turned. How many more secrets had James hidden? How many more lives had he twisted? I pulled out the old wooden box from the pantry, the one where I had stored every receipt, every bill, every forgotten document James thought I never noticed. He always believed I was weak, too timid to question him. But I was smarter than he gave me credit for. Years of quiet observation had left me with enough evidence to destroy him, if I chose to. There were credit card statements showing expensive hotel stays, jewelry purchases I never received, and unexplained transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. I pieced them together like a puzzle, each fragment painting a darker picture of his double life. A flicker of rage surged into resolve. This wasn't just about me anymore. James had humiliated me, tried to strip me of dignity in front of our son, in front of the world. But what he didn't realize was that I wasn't going to vanish quietly. He wanted to embarrass me publicly. Then his downfall would be just as public, only far worse. The next morning, I called an old friend, Mia, a lawyer who owed me a favor. I didn't spill everything at once, just enough to make her lean in over her coffee. "Clara," she whispered, eyes wide. "If you're telling me the truth, this isn't just infidelity. This is fraud." Fraud, the word lit a fire in my chest. It wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about justice. For the first time since the graduation, I smiled. Not the forced, polite smiles James always demanded, but a genuine one. Because for once, I wasn't the one trapped in his web. He was trapped in mine. The morning sunlight streamed through my kitchen window, but instead of feeling warmth, I felt power. For years, James dictated the rhythm of my life, where we lived, how I dressed, who we entertained. Now, I held the reins, and he didn't even know it. Mia came over again that afternoon, carrying a thick folder of legal documents. "Clara, I've reviewed everything you showed me. He's been siphoning money from the company, hiding assets, and falsifying reports. If this gets out, it's not just his reputation on the line, it's his freedom." Hearing those words gave me a chill. James wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a criminal hiding behind tailored suits and hollow promises. But instead of confronting him right away, I decided to play his game. I smiled at dinner, laughed at his hollow jokes, and poured his favorite wine like nothing was wrong. Daniel noticed the change. He asked if I was okay, but I assured him with a quiet squeeze of his hand. My son didn't need to know yet. This was between James and me. Behind the mask, I was working with Mia to collect every last piece of evidence. Old contracts, emails, hidden payments. I even discovered a safe in his office, tucked behind a painting of a sailboat. He had no idea that I knew the combination. What I found inside made my pulse race: stacks of foreign currency, property deeds in another woman's name, and a diamond bracelet with a note attached. To my real future. I wanted to scream, but instead, I carefully placed everything back where it was. Patience was my weapon now. Mia leaned in close before leaving that night and whispered, "Clara, when the time is right, we'll bring this to the board. He'll lose everything." And that was my plan. Not just to expose his lies, but to strip away the empire he built on deceit. He thought he'd humiliated me at our daughter's graduation, breaking me in front of the world. What he didn't know was that his downfall would come just as publicly, only this time there'd be no way for him to escape. For the first time in years, I slept peacefully. Because James' clock had started ticking, and every second brought me closer to his ruin. James always prided himself on being the smartest man in the room, but lately, cracks were starting to show. I saw it in the way his hands shook when he poured his whiskey, in the way his eyes darted when his phone buzzed. He didn't know what I knew, but he could feel something creeping closer. One evening, as he strutted into the kitchen with his usual smugness, He casually said, "Clara, you seem different lately, almost too calm." His tone carried suspicion. I smiled sweetly, keeping my voice steady. "Maybe I've finally learned from you. Never let them see you worry." He narrowed his eyes, studying me like a hawk, but he didn't press further. That told me everything. James was losing his confidence. Behind the scenes, Mia and I prepared the final blow. The company board meeting was only a week away. James believed he was set to announce a new expansion deal that would solidify his image as a business genius. What he didn't know was that every document, every hidden transfer, every stolen dollar was waiting in that boardroom, ready to turn his triumph into his downfall. The more nervous he became, the bolder I felt. I started dropping subtle hints at dinner, little comments that made his fork pause mid-bite. "Funny how secrets always come out eventually," I said one night, sipping my wine. Another evening, I leaned in and whispered, "Do you ever wonder if the life you've built could disappear in a single day?" He laughed it off, but I saw the fear flash in his eyes. Then came the breaking point. Late one night, I walked past his study and heard his voice, low, panicked on the phone. "Vanessa, listen, we need to lay low. Clara's been strange. If she finds out anything, it's over for both of us." I froze in the hallway, pressing my hand against the wall to steady myself. He was crumbling. I went to bed that night with a quiet smile. James thought he was preparing for battle. What he didn't realize was that the war was already lost. The stage was set, the audience was ready, and soon the world would watch him burn. The boardroom smelled of polished wood and expensive cologne. James stood at the head of the long mahogany table, his confidence returning as he adjusted his tie and prepared his grand speech. He believed today would crown him as a visionary leader. What he didn't know was that this was his execution stage. I sat quietly at the far end, an invited observer. Most of the directors nodded at James as he began to speak, his voice dripping with pride. "Ladies and gentlemen," he boomed, "today marks a new era for this company. Our expansion into Europe will." "Actually," Mia interrupted smoothly, sliding a thick folder onto the table. "Before we proceed, there are urgent discrepancies that need clarification." The room shifted. James faltered mid-sentence, his face paling as the directors leaned forward. One by one, Mia revealed the evidence. The falsified reports, the secret accounts, the stolen funds. Gasps echoed around the table. James stammered, his polished image shattering before our eyes. "That's ridiculous," he barked. "These documents are lies fabricated." But then Mia pulled out the final piece. She handed the bracelet with its damning note to the chairman. "To my real future." Silence filled the room like a storm before lightning. I leaned forward, my voice steady but sharp. "James, you tried to humiliate me at our daughter's graduation, but today the truth humiliates you. You've betrayed not just me, but your company, your partners, and your own family." He slammed his fist against the table, shouting, "You set me up." I didn't flinch. "No, James. You set yourself up the moment you thought I was too weak to fight back." Security was called. As they escorted him out, his shouts echoed down the hallway, desperate and broken. I watched without pity. For once, I wasn't the one left in pieces, he was. The board unanimously voted to remove him as CEO. His empire collapsed in a single afternoon. Walking out of that building, the sun warmed my face. For the first time in years, I felt free, not just from James, but from the shadow of his control. Justice wasn't loud. It was calm, final, and devastating, and it was mine.